that's fine. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our last meeting in March 2023. I'd like to start the meeting with Pledge of Allegiance, please. Al Galena will be absent this evening. Scott, we're waiting for Scott Harder, but we can proceed because we do have a 3 out of 5 quorum. I should make a few announcements. There are emergency exits in this room on your left and right. Restrooms are out the back and to the left. And please make sure that you've signed the attendance sheet, no matter if you're presenting or if you're just observing. If you need contact information for the planning staff, there are cards in the back of the room on the table. There's also copies of any resolutions that we are considering this evening and acting on. Please turn off your cell phones, either silence them or turn them off altogether. And if you have any conversations, please take them out the back door and close the doors so that it won't disrupt presentations from the other applicants. With that, in the beginning of the agenda here, we do have one meeting minutes on the 28th of February. Joe, were you here for that one?
I did.
You were on there? You were here for that meeting, correct?
Yes.
You were absent for the one after that, I think. So we do have a quorum for that, I believe. Anybody have any comments for Lisa?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I move.
Brenda
Second.
moves, Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
3-0, it passed. Meeting minutes accepted. We have received a couple items of correspondence from Morris Steed regarding 1086 Strong Road subdivision. I think one of those was to the Conservation Board, correct? We got copied. And then also Dolores Fanton regarding 1086 Strong Road subdivision. I think that was also to the Conservation Board, copied to the Planning Board. Boards and committee updates. We're graced with 2 people from the town board with no updates. Incredible. Okay, thank you.
Well, this is Dave's last meeting.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Dave's last meeting for,
I'll rotate it.
not forever, right? No, we'll see you again.
This go around.
We go quarters.
Yeah.
So we all get a handle and see what's going on.
Perfect. Kim, you're up.
So your next meeting will be April 11th, starting with a public hearing for PMD. It's an addition. They're located at 727 Raleigh Road. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 16,800 square foot addition to the east side of their existing 73,000 square foot building to be used for assembly for automation equipment. Second public hearing will be for the First Light Fiber. It's a site plan modification. They're located at 7890 Lehigh Crossing. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 2,900 square foot lay-down yard, they call it, for storage of fiber installation equipment associated with ongoing operations, along with a fence. And then the third public hearing will be for integrated systems for charging stations at 50 Victor Heights Parkway. It's a site plan application. The applicant is requesting approval to install 5 dual charging bollards in the pre-existing parking area, and then any carryovers from tonight.
Thank you, Kim. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. First one is a public hearing for the Paranello Spa and Pool application. The applicant's requesting approval to install a 10-foot by 20-foot spool, a spa pool, with a 106 square foot deck expansion with new stairs, 1,200 square foot paver patio, wood burning fireplace, and 350 square feet upper patio. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Spencer with BME Associates. With me this evening is Mike Paranello, owner of this property. And exactly as you said, Mr. Chairman, that's about as much as we've got going on, is putting a pool in the backyard.
Could you just pull the mic up close, just higher so that it gets you more directly? Thank you.
So we are planning on doing a slight deck expansion off the back of the home, coming down with a set of steps onto a patio area, which would then house the spool. For clarification purposes, the water surface area will be 10 feet by 20 feet. With the outside edges, we would be looking at a 12-foot by 22-foot overall dimension with the coping of that pool area. I know there were a few concerns, one being fencing around the pool area and/or around the property. In discussion with the homeowner, we're intending on, or they are intending on putting a fence around the entire backyard to fence off the rear yard of the property. They do have dogs, and so it could be actually a positive for them. It may deter some of the deer coming into the property, but that should comply with all of the comments that we received from that aspect of the application. The second, I believe, concern has been raised by Lavella Associates about the septic system, but that's a pre-existing condition. We are not going to be disturbing that at all. We are not coming close to that, moving any soils near that area, so that should be okay. It is in service right now, and it is working right now. All of the materials that we're going to be taking from the excavation of the pool will actually be utilized in the backyard area. We are raising a portion to the north of the pool area. We are redirecting a little bit of drainage around the pool and down toward the existing stormwater management area to the south. Basically not disturbing the existing drainage pattern that exists on the site. If I could, how do I operate this? Right like that. So the existing drainage comes right through this area right now. That's the existing drainage pattern. All we are proposing and doing is bringing it out and around and back down through. We're not really changing the character of the drainage whatsoever on the property. As I said, the fence will go around the backyard, probably intending on coming somewhere in the south end of the house here, staying out of the easement area, and then fencing off the remainder of the property and tying back into the house. The pool equipment will actually be located in an already fenced-in area right to the side of the garage. That houses some air conditioning units right now, condenser units, and there's enough room to actually put the filter and the heater for the spool in that area. Any work, any discharges, any cleaning will be done in that particular area, well away from the septic system itself. There was one other comment I just wanted to, I think we can, per all of the other comments that we received from Labella and from the town, we should be able to provide written responses to those. We don't see anything that cannot be resolved. With that, I'd open up to any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up to the board. Joe?
I was happy to see the introduction of the fence around the property. I was not certain how we would resolve the issue with the code, so I think that's a great way to go. And I'm very curious, I saw the reference to a spa pool and a spool. What makes it a spa pool? I'm very curious. Is it a big hot tub or?
In essence, that's exactly what it is. It'll have a 3.5-foot deep section all the way up to potentially a 5-foot section. And yes, it is something that can be heated and utilized all winter long. So it is just a very large spa or
Sure.
a hot tub.
Are the jets powerful enough that you can actually swim in place as well?
No, not on this particular model of spool. This is literally an oversized hot tub.
Very nice.
But there are swim spas that you reference, but this is not going to be one of those.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ernie?
No, I don't have any comments. It looks like a nice project.
Scott? Need a minute?
I don't have any questions either.
Okay.
Fine.
I had a similar question to Joe, but regarding the fencing, I was curious, do you actually need something to protect the pool and from kids who might be coming out of the house and maybe go right into it? Is there a cover always on it? How does that work?
Yes, there actually will be a cover for that 10 by 20 area. It's a retractable cover that covers, and prior New York State Building Code allowed that to be able to be utilized as securing the pool area. So that will still be incorporated in this. So we're the fence per the building, New York State Building Code, and then we will have that cover, because we also need a cover to retain all the heat of the water as well.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of expected that part of it, but I was just curious about how you look at that cover, whether it's something that, I mean, it can support a person, I'm sure, that they fall on it, correct?
Yes, it can support that
Okay.
weight.
I was looking at the drainage pattern that you're redirecting water around the deck on the, we'll call it the upper part of the drawing. It looks like there's a same elevation on either side of the ditch with the lower spot where the arrows are, but the 565 elevation then gets pushed closer to the next contour above it. And are you intending to make it a steeper area where that goes around? Or are you going to grade it back to what I'll call a brush line that's indicated there on the top of the drawing? You know what I'm talking about, Wes? See right here. And then this grading line is pushed up here. Well, that would tell me that this is going to be awfully much steeper. Now, I don't know how much, but I would have expected that this contour would also move, and you'd end up with more grading in the area. So I guess this is a field thing where you look at it and say, I just want to grade it.
In essence, it will kind of be a field call of what occurs out here. But I think what you're talking about, Joe, is that up in this area here?
Yeah, where the box is called out for project benchmark, to the right of that, or right near the bottom of the box there is contour 566.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would definitely take a look at that. Anything can be smoothed out in that area
Yeah.
and make sure it's just a constant slope coming down.
I didn't see any trees there or anything else, so it's not a big deal, I assume.
Yeah. There are no other trees in that area in the backyard. The rest of the backyard is utilized for lacrosse, soccer. As kids get out there and play.
Sure.
So it wants to be as level as possible. We're not trying to create any type of large elevational changes.
Okay, great. Wes, did you have any comments or things you need to be addressed?
Yeah, we did, Labella provided a letter on March 27th. You've done a very good job at addressing most of these comments. I did want to just ask a question about the drainage as it may be directed nearby to the septic, the leach field. So here we've got the leach field, correct? And you've got the drainage kind of coming in and kind of snaking around in between some of these improvements in the leach field. What's the possibility where you could convey this drainage around the outside of the leach field? Are there limitations to that, like out on site, that would prevent directing this drainage more around to the outside of that leach field?
Yeah, I think the limitation is that the stormwater management area that's directly to the south of the home that's pre-existing, which is this drainage facility here.
Yep.
And all of the drainage comes through into this pond here. Redirecting it off-site, then all of a sudden we are circumventing this stormwater management area here. Could you bring the photo back up? Because I think the photo shows kind of that. Yeah, so there's that pond area right here, which
Yeah.
is within the easement. And you have woods throughout here. The grade is higher here, does come down, but there is a little bit of a ridge line in this area as well.
Okay.
So the water, it all gets collected into this area here.
Okay, understood, yeah. So it sounds like you can't get to that stormwater management area going around the outside of the septic, that's what you're saying?
Not without an extreme amount of grading.
Okay.
No, we do not want to.
All right, perfect.
Try to do that.
All right, thank you. That explanation is fine. So the other comments he's addressed, and I don't have any further concerns. Right, we touched on the fencing issue. A couple of very minor comments, just some things that could be changed prior to signature on a few labels, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Wes. This is a public hearing. Anyone from the public interested in approaching and requesting and making questions, step right up. Name, address, and
Good evening. My name's Timothy McGill, M-C capital G-I-L-L. I'm the neighbor. And if you could see from the picture there, I think I'm the only neighbor. If you look at the top of the
7944, is that
picture.
it?
7944.
okay.
I feel like I got totally blindsided by this. I'll tell you that honestly, just as a neighbor. I received no courtesy notification from Mr. Parinello, or from either of the Parinellos, and my trust level is very, very low, and I'll tell you very quickly why. A couple summers ago, summer afternoon, Mr. Parinello brought a contractor in along our property line. This is a good neighbor story for you. And he had some heavy equipment, and he started cutting down trees in my backyard. And my wife went out and said, "What are you doing? You're cutting down trees in our backyard." And he had papers. She told me, I wasn't home. He had papers. He waved and said something about a pool. And so he bullied her away. I got home. I looked. And he had machinery, had his contractor grade his lawn and expanded his lawn into my backyard some 30 feet. We're not talking 6 inches or 1 foot, 30 feet. And now his lawn is expanded into my backyard. I looked at it. I've done a lot of real estate transactions in my professional career. And we had no heads up. If I was going to do anything at a side lot with my neighbor, I'd say, "I just want to tell you I'm going to start cutting down trees." Or I would get an instrument survey, have a surveyor stake the corners, get a string, and say, "I just had a survey, an instrument survey, and I'm going to do whatever." Neither of those things occurred. No heads up, no survey. So I looked at it and I thought, so I called my surveyor. I paid for a survey. I had him stake the corner stakes. I put the string, and you could see that it was, he extended his lawn into my backyard. So I said to my wife, "I can't let that stand, because if you don't object, within 10 years, you lose the legal title to that by adverse possession." So I put up a split rail fence, appeared here before the board to get approval for that. It's a nice-looking fence. That cost me over $1,000. The survey cost me probably $750. I had to re-landscape behind it where he had come into my backyard. So it cost me a lot of time and thousands of dollars. And I thought, maybe my neighbor will come over and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose," and might even say, "I'll pay for the damage." Because when you do something like that, it's one of two things. It's either negligence, gross negligence that causes damage, or it's intentional, which is what we call a tort, T-O-R-T. And if you intentionally damage someone's property, you're responsible. Either way, you're responsible. You might ask yourself, what would Mr. Parinello do then? Would he say something? He never said a word. He hasn't said a word to this day, and this is like 2 summers ago. So no offers. So now I chose not to bring any kind of legal action, and I let it go. But if I had been given a heads up then, I would have said, "Don't do it. That's my backyard." I had an instrument survey when I bought my home in 1996, and anyone would do that. I don't know why it wasn't done, but either a heads up or the survey. And now, 2 days ago, I get this, which is great. I thank the town. Actually, this town is fantastic, and the planning board's been fantastic. And thankfully, you have this process where you notify someone within 500 yards. And all I know is what it said here. I didn't know about a fence. I didn't know. So on the merits, all I can say is, I assume this whole smash, if he did it without your approval, I assume that's illegal. I don't know whether you're providing a variance, a site plan amendment. I don't know what your legal responsibility is, but I assume that he wouldn't be here before you if he could just do it, and it would be legal. Restrictions in a limited development subdivision like ours have the force and effect of law. So you're changing the law for him. I'm assuming, without knowing, that it's going to enhance the value of his property, but it's going to diminish the value of my property.
Hold on just a second. Let's clarify a few things for you, just so that you
Okay.
understand where the planning board is and what we're actually
Yeah, I don't
reviewing.
even know what you're deciding.
So the planning board does not have the ability to issue variances or change code at all. So the applicant is here for site plan review, right? They're required to get site plan approval to be able to do what they're proposing, right? It's a completely, it's, you know, it's permitted, but the planning board has to bless it, right?
Is it like a
If-
building permit, like it's ministerial, or do you have
it's-
discretion?
Well, it's not, yes, this is a discretionary approval.
Well, then I'm assuming if it's discretionary, okay, thank you for the explanation.
Yep.
I appreciate that. So if it's discretionary, I would say exercising your discretion to enhance the value of his property sounds great, but anything that enhances his property outside, we're talking outside. My family room, the window looks right over where he's doing this, and it's all going to be outside. My back deck is right next to it. It's like here to the wall. So we have to look at what's going to happen at this sports and entertainment or whatever. I just heard today about soccer and who knows what else. We have to look at it and we have to hear it. And maybe you'll decide in your discretion, so be it. But I'm just saying, if you have discretion, and there's a phrase, in Latin phrase, status quo ante. That's all I'm asking. The same as before. And to make a change for someone that could negatively impact my property value when I have no idea what's going on and I didn't get the courtesy of a heads up. You could probably tell I'm probably more irritated by the lack of courtesy. I can't imagine doing that with a side lot without saying to my neighbor, hey, just wanted to tell you I'm going to start cutting down the trees in your backyard. And that's all I have to say.
Could I ask you a
And-
question?
Yeah.
Would landscaping along the common property line, would that be helpful in buffering your visual situation that you described to us and restore some things that may have been removed?
I'm sure it would. I had no idea. I didn't know there was going to be a fence around it, and I don't know if the fence he's talking about is along between our two homes, or whether it's just down with this drainage area that you said. But I'm sure to answer that question, I mean, obviously, any kind of, and if it was natural, it would look better, but
So right
I'm
now,
just-
right now, you're telling us that you'd be looking at a fence, is that correct?
it'd be what?
You'd be looking at a fence?
Well, when I walked in here, I didn't see anything about a fence. I thought I'm going to see people lying around sunbathing and doing whatever they do, and Marco Polo, or I don't know what they're going to do. Now, if there's a natural or man-made fence, then I guess we'd be looking at the fence. I'm just saying, I'm more bothered by the process, to tell you the truth. It's just not the way you should do things, but
What is it about the process?
no courtesy notification.
Oh, so
to my
it's
neighbor.
more
Not you,
personal-
Not you, not
Okay,
you.
got
And
it.
that's, the board's fine, and you may determine you're going to say, go for it. And then we'll have to live with it. I mean, but I have a background that you can see just affects my trust level, that's all. And that's all I'm saying. And I guess I'll go home and watch The Voice with my wife, but I'm just mentioning that to you. I think he deserves to have me say that, even if it's in a public hearing. And maybe after today, he'll apologize for what he did 2 years ago, and maybe he'll do a nice project here. That's for him to determine. Thank you.
So one of the things about them coming back to the board in a limited development district is to give neighbors an opportunity to voice their opinions about a project, their impacts to them versus that maybe another area of the town wouldn't get that opportunity. So hearing what you've said, appreciate your candor. Sort of generates a question for me, what kind of fencing you're going to be putting in. So if you could perhaps address that. I'm not thinking of chain link fences would be acceptable.
You mentioned tort. The statute of limitations is 3 years for a tort claim and 1 year for an intentional tort. Give some free legal advice.
Right now, we have not determined exactly what style of fence that may be going around the rear yard of the property, but it will be going down that property line. It will have to be 48 inches in height, and it could be a decorative metal fence. If it is a decorative metal fence with some screen plantings, Mr. Paranello is proposing putting landscaping and plantings throughout the entire backyard. He did not hire us to do that design. That's going to be done by a landscaper that has been hired for the project. But there is intent to put screen plantings on that northern property line to actually block between those two houses, because a similar concern from the backyard of the Paranello's residence is viewing into that other structure. And that if you were going out to that pool area, do want to have a little bit more privacy. If we could have the neighbors talk with one another, we may be able to consider a more solid style fence along that northern property line to provide a little bit even more buffering, potentially.
I guess being in a limited development district, I would expect that it would be more decorative in nature and not a chain link dog fence, for instance, that you'd see elsewhere, but I'd be interested to see how we might put some language in this application, resolution to reflect that. You know, I don't want to say the neighbor has to approve the fencing, but it's got to be something a little more descriptive than a fence, being that it's in a limited development district. So, I don't know, does the board have an opinion any other way on that?
I think it should be a nice fence. I guess one other comment that I have is I noticed on your drawing, you're showing that there is some vegetation along the north line. You are showing some trees. Would that area be enhanced then potentially with the landscape work that you're talking about?
Yes, that's correct. And what we had discussed was actually doing some evergreen plantings, kind of at the, if you could pull the plan back up, I can point to some of these areas. There is an evergreen, and there's some larger shade trees in this area. We're actually discussing being able to provide a little bit more screening in this area, so when you're in the backyard, you're not looking at the neighboring property as well. Paranellos want to be secluded from their neighbors as well.
So where is the fence line actually going? Because I think that,
It's intended to go from, there's a door that goes into a back office area of the home here. It's intended that the fence would come from that corner out to the property line, and then back down through this area, and come back and connect into the midpoint of the southern facade of the structure.
so I'm looking at that and I'm seeing Mr. McGill's split rail fence depicted on the survey drawing. Are you going to then have two fences parallel to each other within a couple of feet?
Yeah, if that is on his property, that is his property. And so Mr. Paranello can't remove that. So yes.
Oh, understood.
We would propose a fence on the Paranello property.
Yeah, I just wouldn't expect to see it being less of a fence because there's another fence there already. So, so more closed in so the dogs can't get through it, or is that more of a decorative separation?
It needs to meet New York State Building Code, and I believe for a fence of this nature, there is actually a dimension between your styles of the fence. I believe it is a 4-inch separation. It's either a solid body fence or it's a fence that allows, deck enclosure. So the dogs would be kept inside the Paranello's backyard.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Scott?
I'm just wondering if an updated plan showing that fence and some landscaping might not be appropriate, given the input that we've received.
I would think that's totally appropriate. Show exactly where the fence line is intended. And the anticipated style even, I would think. And you don't have to say this one, but, looking at this, and that option, all of which would be decorative and height and meeting code and things like that. I think we should have that on the plans before they're signed off on.
Yeah, if you could provide that as a condition to the approval, we will add that information. We will show where the screen plantings may be planted and the style of fence that we
That
would be proposing.
very helpful.
Yeah, sure.
So, as a, that was it. Mr. McGill, did you have any other questions or comments? I'm going to close the public hearing, so I want to give you one opportunity to,
Thank you for your questions, I appreciate it. I would just say, if you ever drive down our street, the split rail fence that I put up, it actually looks nice. I don't know if this is going to look nice, but it's not going to, apparently going to be up to me, but hopefully it looks nice, and I appreciate your suggesting that it should look nice.
okay,
That's all I have to say. All right, thank you.
thank you.
Still open?
Sure it is.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're the applicant.
I appreciate it. The only thing I'll say is,
Just name and address for the
Mike
record.
Parinello, Parinello, 7950 Oak Brook Circle. Only because it's a public hearing and a matter of public record, I believe what Mr. McGill said was grossly inaccurate and exaggerated the facts. I had an instrument survey, as we all do when we buy homes. I did my best to endeavor the point. I do apologize in public for what may have been deemed to you to be a slight. However, I will be perfectly honest, we improved the property and our shared side lot, frankly, by taking down trees that were dead and potentially dangerous for my children who are young. I did not get a courtesy relative to the split rail fence, nor did I get a card in the mail, I don't think, but that's neither here nor there. As it comes to enhancing our property, yep, I want to do that. Frankly, I think it will enhance the entire neighborhood as well. Not the only one on the street who has done what we're planning to do. So I just wanted to make that a matter of record.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you, you're welcome. So with that, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Who moves?
Second.
Ernie, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carried? That was Ernie, right?
That was Ernie.
Okay,
That's me.
good.
Put me on at the end this year.
Sorry?
Put me down to the end this year. So can't be heard.
We forgot about him.
That's right.
Did I not give you a chance to say anything? I gave you an opportunity to say something, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good.
Talked about the torts, right?
I did. I did.
All right. Resident attorney may seek legal action against this chairman, I don't know. In any case, we do have a resolution drafted for this application. If everyone is willing, I think with one exception of the designating the fence location and any landscaping proposed on the lot line as a condition to be addressed. I will read the resolution and we can act on it. So for the Parinello Spa Pool, 7950 Oak Brook Circle, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 8 of them. Now therefore be resolved that the application of Michael Parinello, site plan entitled Parinello Spa Pool, drawn by BME Associates, dated March 2022, received by the planning board March 7th, 2023, planning board application 7 SP 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to chairman's signature on the site plan. Number 1 is standard. Number 2, comments in a letter dated March 23rd, 2023 from the code enforcement officer be addressed. Number 3, the comments in a letter dated March 27th, 2023 from Labella Associates be addressed. I guess I will add number 4, Wes, you were jotting something down.
I've
Go
got
ahead.
it here. That the site plan depict the location of the proposed fence, as well as the proposed landscaping at the northern lot line adjacent to 7944 Oak Brook Circle.
Thank you. Ongoing conditions, number 1 is standard, and number 2 is standard. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. Do I hear a motion?
Also moved.
Joe moves,
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 4-0 with condition.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. Oh, Mr. McGill left. All right. All right. The only other agenda item we have has been an agenda item we've been seeing for the last year or so. Preliminary subdivision, in this case, public hearing has been closed. N86 Strong Road subdivision applicant is requesting approval to subdivide 34.42 acre parcel into 11 single-family lots, including an existing house and garage. This will be the second step in a 3-step process for a major subdivision. Sketch plan was acknowledged complete June 8th, 2021. And on 3/21, we received revised site plans. And the board acted at the last meeting on seeker with no adverse impact. So with that, in front of us is, in the next step of the process, is the set of preliminary plans. So Wes, if you want to sort of walk us through a little bit on how we got where we are with the specifics that might be
Yeah.
important from the,
Absolutely. We'll just recap briefly what transpired at the last planning board meeting with regard to this project. And essentially, as Joe said, the planning board did act on seeker and issued a negative declaration. There were a few items at the last meeting that we touched upon, including impact on groundwater. And let's see. So one of the items that we talked about is that the proposed project would result in the installation of 10 new water supply wells to serve 10 new residential homes. And Labella had a professional geologist consider and evaluate the proposal as well as the hydrogeologic setting and provided feedback on the adequacy of the water supply. And per the Labella memo from the geologist, there is every expectation to believe that the test wells were representative of the aquifer conditions at the site, and that wells drilled on the other lots of 1086 Strong Road subdivision would encounter similar suitable water supply conditions. And we also concluded that there is more than sufficient groundwater recharge across the site to sustain the demand of 10 new residences of the subdivision. And lastly, the potential adverse impacts in on the water levels in adjacent off-site water supply wells are not expected or are believed to be minimal at most. We also touched upon the topic of consistency with community plan and consistency with community character. And the planning board did take a careful look at these issues because there were so many public comments related to the character of the community, the topography, the changing conditions that would result from the project. And we identified that there was a concept level future land use potential density changes map on page 8.16 of the town's comprehensive plan, which within which the project site is located as an area where the town could consider increasing residential density from the least dense to a medium density. And obviously, this project is adhering to the density requirements of the existing zoning district of 0.33 units per acre. We talked about some of the other, how the project is consistent with various sections of the comprehensive plan. Let's see. Numerous residents had provided written correspondence indicating that the proposed density, while permitted within the residential A overlay district, is not in character with the existing neighborhood across the street, Taylor Road, to the north. The existing homes in the area have been built over a number of years. However, the density of the existing homes across the street is not significantly different than what is being proposed with the current project that the planning board is considering, despite the proposed configuration having somewhat less lot frontage than some of the existing lots on the north side of Taylor Road. And the design plans have been modified from the initial submission, partly in response to community comments, right? And the design has changed to provide a varied setback of these homes from Taylor Road so that they weren't all lined up at a similar setback from the right-of-way. And while the initial submission included depictions of home sites that would have been consistently set back from the roadway, the home sites for lots 4, 5, and 6 have increased setbacks away from Taylor Road, which provides consistency and continuity of the existing residential development on the north side of the Taylor Road. The visual character of the neighborhood will be changed, and the proposal reflects a design that is generally consistent with the design, placement, and intensity of use of the neighborhood. So to me, the way the planning board reviewed and evaluated this project, you've identified that there are impacts associated with the project, but the impacts have not risen to the level of being significant, warranting the need for a pause deck and an environmental impact statement. So accordingly, at the last meeting, you passed a neg deck resolution. I don't know if, do any of the board members have any questions on that?
Yes, I do. So we looked at item number 2, which was the geology being changed, as well as items 17 and 18 that you referenced. And each of those had multiple questions. And in each of them, there was at least one item that was moderate to large. And I don't disagree with the negative declaration, but I am very curious, and I could use some schooling on what it would take to trigger a full environmental review. Is it a cumulative effect? Is there a number? Would one particular item on the Part 2 be sufficient to trigger a full review? I'm not sure how that would work.
Okay. Okay, so with question number 2, right, impact on geological features. Let me make sure.
I know that there's only 2 areas in the town that show as significant, the drumlin on Gillis Road, and I believe there's an area in Fishers.
Yeah, the Kettle, I think the Kettles.
Yeah, the Kettles and Fishers and the Drumlins up in the Gillis Road area, I believe. That's what you brought forward, I believe, as we were reviewing this, Wes?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So, and what we had indicated, the checkbox for moderate to large under impact to geologic features was in regard specifically to the locally recognized varied topography, right? I know the public has mentioned, the change to the drumlins, right, or the change to the topography. And just for clarification purposes, the project site doesn't really appear to have what is being termed drumlins, right? Drumlins there are some drumlin features in the town of Victor. They're largely located in the eastern portion of the town, north of the New York State Thruway. So what we have here, it may be locally significant and locally recognizable to the neighbors. And I think for that reason, we've identified, this is a moderate to large impact. So, looking at the Seeker EAF workbook, right, there's an opportunity to identify these impacts and determine whether they are small or large. So here's some example of small impacts. Landforms are located on the project site, but the project will not affect the reason the feature was included in the database. Well, this is specifically talking about items on the New York State database, and there will only be a temporary limitation of access to the feature during the construction phase. moderate to large impact, there will be a severe limitation or elimination of access to the site containing the feature, and there will be alteration to physical aspects of the feature in any way. And the setting of the feature will be physically altered, or new structures will affect the aesthetic character and setting of the feature.
So I guess rather than go into a lot of detail, Wes, because I think we've talked about this a lot, I guess my question is more generic.
Okay.
Would that one moderate to large be enough significance to move us to a full environmental review? Does there need to be is there a magic number, or would we make a determination that that one item is so significant that we would need to not issue the negative declaration? And again, this is more a procedural thing than
Yeah.
specific to this project.
Okay, I see. So it varies on a case-by-case basis, and you do look at maybe, the number of items that you have checked as moderate to large. But just because we have one that's checked moderate to large, you also need to identify the duration of the impact, the likelihood of the impact, and its importance, right? So, what is the duration of the change in the landscape, right? It's probably permanent, right? Because some residential homes are going to be located on the project parcel, and that's really probably going to be an irreversible item. So the duration is probably permanent. The likelihood of the impact, we know it is going to happen, right? We know it's going to happen in a specific area of the project site. There is a significant amount of acreage of the project parcel that is being preserved with as part of the 50% open space requirement, and the applicant providing a conservation easement in part of that area. So yes, a portion of the site is going to likely be impacted permanently, but how important is that impact? Is it not important? Is it fairly important? Or is it very important? Those are a few of the questions that you can ask or you can evaluate on those parameters and say, is this really going to be a significant adverse impact that is important, and does it warrant further environmental consideration by issuing a pause deck and an environmental impact statement?
So there's a slider in there. So given the scenario you described there, we'd probably be tending towards the moderate side of moderate to large. And if we were on the other side of the slider, that we may have a second decision to make, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that's the sort of the procedural thing I was looking to get a clarification on.
And part of that is if you do have a moderate to large, there's the opportunity to try to mitigate that too.
Yes.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to go to a pause deck if you mitigated that effect, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The applicant or through the planning board can demand or the applicant may change the plans to minimize or avoid those impacts, right? And if you can minimize and avoid those impacts to a reasonable extent where you're comfortable with issuing a neg deck, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can do that without having to issue the neg deck or the pause deck.
Say something?
Well, I think Wes's comment is correct, that it really is project dependent. No two projects are ever the same, and that's certainly true here. But if, for example, there was massive excavation, if, for example, the engineer wanted to put the homes right next to the creek, let's say, and he wanted to relocate the creek, and he wanted to excavate around the area where you currently see the houses, I would say that's a large impact. And I would say, yes, you're headed into a pause deck from that. But to the contrary, and I think this is how many of these projects are designed by engineers, you really don't want to create a lot of excavation. You don't want to change the natural topography, because that's what's enticing for the people who are going to want to purchase the homes. And so I think that's been achieved here. And I also think, once again, we have a frontage lot subdivision surrounded by frontage lots in a residentially zoned area, bottom line. And these homes are accessed by automobiles, as are the neighbors around us. All those neighbors contribute to the traffic issues we all experience in the town of Victor, and that which is experienced at that intersection that we've discussed many times. So I think moderate to small on almost all these impacts is appropriate.
Wes, could you explain further what you commented on before, that the only real drumlins in the town are north of the thruway?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to bring up a graphic. So Susie, before you change let me see if I can find the graphic first before you change anything. Because I think I have one that might be helpful.
You don't want us to see you navigating all around your screen there, Wes?
It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
Got the magic cable.
While we have this break, I just want to comment on the good publicity that Kim got in the paper this week.
Me?
Yeah,
I did?
yeah,
What did it say?
I don't remember.
But a good comment,
It was a good comment.
nonetheless.
No, it was very complimentary.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was in the Democrat and Chronicle.
All right, Susie, I think I'm ready. Ready? Yeah.
This will have to be pursued further. Inquiring minds want to know. Go ahead, Wes.
Okay. So this is simply a digital elevation, kind of like a shaded relief map of the town of Victor. You can kind of see the green areas are the lower lying areas in the town, right? So you've got this is the Route 96 corridor, right? And you've got Interstate 90 here, Interstate 490, and so here's the village. So over here on the eastern side of town, north of the New York State Thruway, you see these linear features that are kind of oriented north to south, right? Those are what would be more characterized as drumlins, right? And one of those, I think this one here is recognized, I think by the state, or is on a list that we talked about in the EAF. This project, the 1086 Strong Road, is over here towards the town of Mendon, and we don't see those north-south areas of these drumlins. I'll zoom in here a little bit more closely.
There's a little bit of that character in there. You might stretch into that. I mean, it does look like there's some north-south features. Whether or not they're considered drumlins or not is another question.
Yeah. So I think, in my, I don't know, I'm not a geologist, but just looking at this, they're more prominent over here on the eastern side of town than what we see here on Taylor Road. And basically, the drumlins are blunt on one end, right, and they kind of taper off gradually on the other end.
Like a comet.
Yeah.
There's a large one as you're getting down to the end of Gillis Road that runs parallel to Brownsville Road.
That's the one that Wes is talking about.
Yeah, that's huge. And there's another one on Klein Road as you're heading towards Blasey Road on the left-hand side of the road.
You can see that too in the same drawing, same plan, upper right.
So that's just kind of what I wanted to point out with the shaded relief map. But you do see over here, if we do look at the Strong Road map, Strong and Taylor Road, you do see some changes in color here, right? Where the green is the lower lying elevation, then as you get higher in elevation, you got the yellow and some orange. So there is some varied topography, as is shown on the grading plan, right? So.
Okay.
Well, thanks. I know I took us a little far afield, but I was curious.
No, I think it's important for anyone who might be watching this online too, to see the exhibits that Wes has been discussing and to give them some more understanding about the background on our decision and what we've considered, which is quite substantial, I think. So, and we chatted about that last time at the last meeting when we were going through the part two. So is there anything else, Wes, that we should be looking at? Did you wanted to maybe highlight?
I don't believe so, right? Procedurally, you've completed the seeker process.
Right.
And that allows you to take action on the preliminary subdivision application, right? So.
I think with what we've done to date is consider the current site plan in our deliberations regarding seeker and environmental impacts. So with that, having created or approved a negative declaration last time, I think we can look at the draft resolution for the preliminary plan set. So if you guys are comfortable with that, I will read it. So, okay. Thank you, Wes, appreciate it, and all the work you've done on this. This resolution, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and this is application 04 PS 2021, Strong Road subdivision at 1086. A preliminary subdivision application was received by the Secretary of the Town of Victor Planning Board on August 25th, 2021, from A6 Property Holdings, the applicant for a preliminary subdivision entitled 1086 Strong Road subdivision, the project, for the property located at 1086 Strong Road. The intent of the applicant to develop 11 single-family residences on 34 plus or minus acres, property located with frontage on Taylor Road and Strong Road, where said property is within the town's residential 2 zoning district within the town's residential A zoning overlay district, which is a third of an acre of unit per acre or 3 acres per unit. Item 3, public hearing was duly called for and published in the Daily Messenger, and whereby all property owners within a minimum of 500 feet of the project site were notified by U.S. mail. An under review sign was posted at the project site as required by town code. Number 4, Town of Victor Planning Board, the planning board, opened a public hearing regarding the application on September 28th, 2021, which remained open until February 14th, 2023, when the planning board formally closed the public hearing. The public was afforded the opportunity to speak regarding the proposed application during this time frame, in accordance with Section 184-13C2D of the Victor Town Code and in accordance with Section 276 of New York State Town Law. Number 5, Planning Board has also received and reviewed multiple pieces of correspondence from nearby residents and property owners who have expressed concern over a number of issues, including but not limited to traffic, community character, drainage, and density. All correspondence is in the town's file for the application. Number 6, the application was referred to the Ontario County Planning Board under Section 239N of the General Municipal Law on September 8th, 2021. Ontario County Planning Board referred the application back to the referring agency as a Class 1. Number 7, the Conservation Board reviewed the project on September 7th, 2021, November 1st, 2022, February 21st, 2023, and provided comments. A coordinated fire service review was completed August 26, 2021, October 21st, 2022, October 31st, 2022, January 19th, 2023, January 20th, 2023, January 24th, 2023, and comments were provided. LaBelle Associates reviewed the preliminary subdivision and made comments in letters dated October 13th, 2021 and March 6th, 2023, and provided comments. Item 10, Code Enforcement reviewed the preliminary plan on September 28th, 2021 and October 28th, 2022, and provided comments. Number 11, Town of Victor Highway Department reviewed the preliminary plan on August 31st, 2021 and November 1st, 2022, and provided comments. Number 12, the Town of Victor Stormwater Manager reviewed the plans on a September 27th, 2021, October 27th, 2022, January 23rd, 2023, and January 24th, 2023, and provided comments. 13, the Town and Village Historian reviewed the plans on September 17th, 2021, October 28th, 2022, and January 17th, 2023, and provided comments. Number 14, pursuant to Section 27(8)J of the Town Code, a recreation fee for each lot, or in the event of a multiple dwelling, a recreation fee for each family unit in lieu of parkland shall be paid to Town of Victor prior to issuance of a building permit. Number 15, the Planning Board has considered the need for sidewalks within the subdivision and has determined that they would not be required. Whereas that the Planning Board hereby waives Chapter 55, Section 55(6), Paragraph D of the Victor Town Code that would require 440-foot separation between driveways as part of access spacing requirements. as the proposed land use does not generate a significant amount of traffic, nor do Taylor Road or Strong Road have the volume of traffic that warrant adherence to access spacing, and whereas the planning board hereby waives section 2793 of the town's design and construction standards for lots 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, so as to allow roof drainage to discharge onto splash blocks and convey drainage to drainage swales where abutting or downstream properties will not be adversely affected, and such disconnection would promote opportunity for roof drainage to be infiltrated into soils. And whereas the planning board classified the project as a type 1 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and initiated a lead agency coordination process by transmitting Part 1 of the seeker environmental assessment form and project information involved in an interest agencies, and the planning board carefully reviewed the long environmental assessment form and did not identify the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact associated with the proposed action using the criteria for determining significance identified in 6 NYCRR, Section 617 7C1, and in accordance with 6 New York NYCRR 617 7C2 and 3, and issued a negative declaration that is more fully articulated in the planning board's negative declaration resolution passed on March 14th, 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the preliminary subdivision application of Steve Deanna of A6 Property Holdings, major subdivision entitled 1086 Strong Road subdivision, drawn by Douglas Eldred, Site Engineering, sheets 1 through 11, dated August 2021, received by the planning board August 25th, 2021, last revised March 13th, 2023, planning board application 4PS 2021, be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to chairman's signature on the site plan. That no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25th, 1996. That's section 4 of standard approval conditions for all subdivisions, major and minor, of the design and construction condition. Design and constructions be met. Is that right? That number 3, that comments in a letter dated January 20th, 2023 from Fire Marshal be addressed. Number 4, comments in the letter dated October 28th, 2022 from Code Enforcement Officer be addressed. Number 5, that the comments in a letter dated March 6th, 2023 from Labella Associates be addressed. Number 6, that the comments in a letter dated January 24th, 2023 from the Stormwater Management be addressed. Manager be addressed, sorry. Ongoing conditions: 1, that the major subdivision comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standard land development, including section 4. Number 2, that all conservation easement markers be shown on final plans. Number 3, should underground water conditions be encountered during construction, the developer is to address the encroachment and impact to the underground water conditions to the satisfaction of the town engineer. Number 4, that the request of the planning and building department be a pre-construction meeting, at the request, a pre-construction meeting shall be held prior to the start of construction. Sorry, my eyes are starting to go here. Number 5, that a Town of Victor highway work permit be obtained before construction of curb cuts on Taylor Road and Strong Road. Number 6, the applicant shall be aware that yard trees are required per section 184-16C7 of the Victor Town Code. Number 7, that if the applicant would like the Town of Victor to be responsible for the long-term maintenance of the stormwater facility, the applicant shall apply to have the property become part of the Town of Victor Drainage Improvement Area, DIA. This application process involves submitting a map plan and report that the town engineer will review, and then the town board would have to approve adding the property to the Town of Victor DIA. And we'd further resolve that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So that was a lot to read. I'm open to a motion for approval.
I have a question first.
I'm sure.
It refers to
Where, Ernie?
11. properties to be developed, does that include the existing house on the corner?
Yes.
Because I only count 10.
There's 10 houses plus the existing, so that is 11.
Okay.
That answer your question? Okay.
I'll do it.
Sorry, Scott, did you?
I'll move that.
Okay, Scott makes a motion for approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ernie, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Joe?
Nay.
Okay, approved 3-1. I believe that's the last of this agenda item. Does anyone have anything else, new business or otherwise?
Nope.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Doug, did you have a question before we adjourn?
A quick question. You know, these, I know it always is this way, but all these list of items to be addressed, they all have been addressed. As far as I know, there hasn't been anybody that wasn't satisfied with the responses to the comments. It always just looks,
It's formal to make sure they're included. If they're all addressed,
yeah.
shouldn't be an issue.
So it looks like it's all, you know, it just makes it look like it's incomplete.
Oh, well,
But,
Wes, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think you have done the diligence in terms of responding to all these comments. I know at least for Labella Associates, the town engineer comments, we do need to close the loop on our review.
Okay.
So we need to get you, as the applicant, an updated letter
okay.
to be able to close the loop on those items. But I think largely, yes, you have addressed most of these comments.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, other than whatever you have all been addressed to the satisfaction of the parties that had the comments, because I hadn't heard back from them on any particular items.
I'd be happy to work with the Planning and Building Office to be sure that, you know, they're comfortable that each of these have been addressed. And if they're not, we can let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a way to move forward, and this is a big start to do that. I appreciate that we're,
Yeah, and also just for everybody in the room or anybody that's watching, just to kind of recap what the preliminary subdivision is and what that, you know, that's really when, that's really the substance and the large review happens at the preliminary phase, right? And that's, right, because that's when we're also evaluating seeker. So, you know, that's a very large hurdle to take, right, to get preliminary subdivision approval. That's where significant refinements might be done in the plans, and I think as part of the final subdivision application, that's generally seen as, I'll reference it as, you know, crossing your Ts and dotting your Is. It's
Right.
generally much quicker than, and as I think you recognize, it's much a quicker process than the preliminary subdivision.
so then the other question I have is whether or not the board is satisfied with the conservation easements and the discussion we had last time about the conservation easements along the roadways in the setback areas.
So long as the markers go in.
Pardon me?
So long as the markers go in.
Yeah, I don't know what the markers, I suggested putting pine trees at the corners. I don't know if you have a different marker or that you want to use. Or-
It has been done with like a boulder here and there in different places that people didn't want to see a marker that had to maintain or anything, so.
I mean, you know, to be frank, there's, unless Wes has something, the final plans are going to be exactly the same as the preliminary plans because we've addressed everything on the plans.
The last plan I saw, there were still some outstanding items to be refined. The well location on at least one of them, there
Yeah,
was some
he's-
other stuff.
He did give us an updated set of
Okay.
plans since then.
Yeah, I updated all those.
So I
So,
was looking at the set that I have electronically. I still saw some markups and
There
things
was,
like that on.
well,
others.
I submitted them last Thursday or Wednesday, whatever it was.
Yeah, they were submitted. I
Yeah.
just need to wrap up final comments from everybody.
Okay.
That's all.
So,
I guess we'll take a sharper look at the conservation lines. I've
Pardon?
probably
well, I
most.
just don't want, I'm trying to get rid of gray areas so that when I come back in here, and, you know, it says you gotta have a 5-week period for final review. I'm looking at the fact that we have no, as far as I'm aware, we have no unaddressed comments unless Wes has a couple. The plans have been updated for everybody's comments. I have no other issues. The only issue that I'm aware of in my mind, is somewhat up in the air is the conservation easement. And, you know, we made the proposal along the lines of what Wes said. I'm just looking to close the gap and see if we can get this thing over with. So, you know, if you do have other items of concern, I would certainly like to hear them. I'm going to turn right around and submit for final immediately. Maybe I need to wait for Wes's response, I guess, but other than that, you know,
My biggest comment about conservation easements, as I'm sure you're aware, is I want to see them as efficient and adjacent as possible,
Yeah.
continuous, I should say.
yeah,
is a
I
better
think,
word.
Wes's suggestion went a long ways in that regard. I did want to point out, I mean, if you read my letter, that I wasn't stopping them at every driveway or for any obstruction like that. My thought is just write that in there. And there's excess conservation easement, so if you were to take them out, they equal .03 acres, you still have enough acreage. So, you know, again, I'm just trying to close the loop on these things. We've discussed them a few times. I want to make sure that everybody's generally on board with where we're at.
Okay,
Okay? Thank you.
all right, thanks, Doug. All right, I did hear a motion and second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carried.
Aye.
Have a good evening, everyone.